You mentioned earlier Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which is I think one of the funniest movies ever, and it seemed like the two of you were having a great time making
We had a great time, yeah. When they first came to me, I thought they were joking. Frank Oz came to me and he said, we want you to do a film. And I said, where's it going to be? He said, oh, it's going to be in the south of France. He said, he said, if you do it, we'll get you a villa down there. We're 3 months down there, and we'll get you a villa. And I'm going, villa 3 months south of France? And he said, yes. And he named where it was, and it was right between two of my best friends, Leslie Bricusse, the composer, and Roger Moore. And it was right between the two houses. And I said, oh, that's great. And he said, I'll send you a script. I felt like saying, don't bother. I'll do it anyway. But I did read the script, and I thought it was a riot, and I loved it. And Steve Martin is such a wonderful, wonderful person to work with. He's fabulous.
Well, you get the feeling, I mean, the movie is about con men. It's about acting in a way. It's,
con men,
yeah. And you see the two of you playing off each other's styles.
The secret of that movie is that he was nuts, and I never played it I was completely serious at all times. And he was very funny. If I'd have tried to be funny, it's not funny, especially in movies. It's only funny, he was only funny because he was eccentric. But I wasn't eccentric, I was a real person, so I could never do anything funny. And that's what made it funny.
Another movie I have to ask you about is, it's my favorite Michael Caine movie, and it's also one of my favorite movies, period, and that's The Man Who Would Be King.
Yeah.
Everything about that movie is extraordinary, it seems to me. And I wonder if you'd talk a little bit about what it was like to make it and what it was like to work with John Huston.
It was great. First of all, Christopher Plummer, who played Rudyard Kipling, and Sean Connery and I were all very close friends anyway.
To begin with? Before you made the film?
Before we'd known each other for years, before we ever did the movie. I'd never met John Huston. He was my favorite director. And I was staying in Paris with my wife, and I was in the hotel, and the phone rang, and this voice said, is that Michael Caine? And I said, who's this? Stop mucking about, because I thought it was my friend, you know? And he said, it's John Huston. And I said, no, come on, who is it? He said, it's John Huston. He said, I'd like to talk to you about a movie. So he said, it's a Rudyard Kipling story called The Man Who Would Be King. So I said, oh, yes. I said, I'd love to talk to you. He said, well, would you like to, could you come and see me? I said, yes, when would you like? He said, I'm in the bar next door. He said, would you come? And now we were in the George Cinq, and he was in the Prince de Galles next door. So I went down, and he said, we're doing, he said, and there's the two of them. He said, it was Peachy Carnahan and Daniel Dravot. He said, I was going to make it before. He said, but Clark Gable and Humphrey Bogart died, he said. He said Clark was going to play Daniel Dravot, and Bogart was going to play your part. And Bogart was my favorite actor. I thought, I'm going to play a part that Bogart was going to play. I'm going to be directed by John Huston. And he said, I'll send you a script. And I said, it's okay, I'll do it, don't worry. And I really did say, I'll do it before I read the script, because I didn't care. Also, he was very, I said to him one day, he never said anything to you. He never gave you any direction. And I said, John, I said, you never say, other directors are always telling me this and what to do. He said, you get paid a lot of money for doing this, Michael. He said, you don't need me to tell you what to do. I said, oh, all right, John. And I was doing a take, and it was a long monologue, and halfway through, I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't dried or fluffed or anything. And he went, cut. And he gave me my whole character in one line. He said, you could speak faster, Michael. He's an honest man. And I've been very suspicious of people who talk slowly ever since. I'll tell you a funny thing about Alfie. I had a very close friend who was a Frenchman. And Alfie died in France. It was the only place in the world where it died. And I said to this very close friend, French friend of mine, I said, Alfie died in France, you know? He said, I know it did. And I said, why do you think that is? He said, well, no Frenchman could believe that an Englishman could seduce 10 women. So I said, thank you very much. I loved Hannah and her sisters. I enjoyed working on it, and it gave me a chance to live in New York, which I loved. You know, I loved this city. But it was very weird because Woody, at that time, was Mia's lover. And we shot the movie in her apartment, some of it. That was our apartment. And then we had a scene in bed, and it was her bed. You know, and we were sort of making a bit of love or something, you know, it was a bit intimate. And Woody was directing it, who was her lover. And I looked up, and I was just going to kiss her. And over her shoulder, I could see her ex-husband, Andre Previn, looking at me. And he had come to see the kids. But she had lots of kids. But he had 2 by her, I think. She had a whole wall of kids. They had bunkers. I think there were 9 of them. And they were in a bunker. They all climbed up in bunkers, going up the wall. And I had lines in the script like I'd say, I hate kids, and I don't like the country either, you know? And when we were rehearsing, she said to me, there's a lot of lines like this in this picture. I said, what? She said, Woody's telling me things through you. And that's about as intimate as we're going to get about Hannah and her sisters. Well, he was loaded with medicines. Oh. And one of them was Valium. And when we started to rehearse, he couldn't remember the lines. And I thought, Laurence Olivier, you know, he did 3.5-hour plays, and he can't remember the lines. And it was because of Valium, and he stopped taking them. But he had other medicines, but then he could remember the lines. He was also having a nervous breakdown because he'd just been fired from the National. Mm. Yeah. And we had a sort of strange sort of relationship. It started before we. He was Lord Olivier, and we're back to British class system again. And we were going to do this film, and I'd never met him. And about a fortnight, 2 weeks before we started, I got a letter from him, and he said, "You may be wondering, because I'm Lord Olivier, how to address me." And he said, "From the moment we shake hands on meeting, you must call me Larry forever." So that was great. We got to working, and he was very funny because I had a television in my dressing room, and I was watching Wimbledon. I love tennis. And it was the year Yvonne Goolagong won. That was the year she won. And I was watching tennis, and he came by my dressing room, and he went, "You're watching television?" I said, "Yes." I said, "It's Wimbledon. I love tennis." He said, "You mean you can watch television between takes?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I don't think I could do that." He said, "I work between takes. I'm always thinking about the part between takes." I said, "Well, I've already thought about the part." I said, and I thought I'd watch Wimbledon. So he said, "Can I watch television with you?" So I said, "Yes." I said, I won't disturb you in there and tell you anything's on. I said, "You can come in any time I like." He said, "Can I?" I said, "Yeah, any time you like." And he did. He did. And he gave me the greatest compliment I've ever had in my life. He said, we did a scene, very emotional scene. He was going to shoot me. And we did a very emotional scene. And at the end of it, he looked at me. He said, "You know, Michael," he said, "I thought I had an assistant. I see I have a partner." And I went, "That is the greatest thing anyone ever said."